Hey everybody, Greg Pruitt here, president of the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, and welcome to the latest episode of Guns with Greg. Today we are going to talk about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I've followed Charlie for quite a long time, never got to go see him in person. I missed this recent visit he did at Boise State University, and honestly just still kind of in shock that it happened in Utah. Of all places, you would have expected this to maybe happen in a place like California or New York or some, liberal bastion, but for it to happen in Utah is just quite the shock. I'm still, even today, I mean, he's not a personal friend or family, anything like that. I'm still just trying to process what is happening. I think like a lot of people are. Charlie was someone who, was a conservative. Glenn Beck, I think, called him a civil rights activist, which I think he was. He was always talking about free speech and the ability to sit down and discuss ideas with people who you vehemently disagreed with and having those tough debates and conversations, because that's what our country was founded on, was the ability to have these ideas and not have government breathing down your neck, telling you what you can and can't say. And at the end of the day, they took the life of someone who adamantly opposed the restriction on speech but it's funny, they would call him a right-wing extremist, but like in the political sphere, he's not necessarily known for being super right-wing. He's not a rhino. He's not a super moderate, but he's not someone that you would consider a right-wing, extremist type person. He was someone who was willing to sit down with the other side and have discussions. And so what this shows you is that the leftists, who were celebrating the murder of another individual that they just disagreed with because of his opinions, they don't want debate. They don't want discussion. These far left extremists. I think there are liberals who are willing to have those debates and discussions and are not celebrating his death. But there is a disturbingly large amount of people who, and these are only the people we know that have posted stuff online, right? Videos or comments or whatever. We can only see the stuff online. We're not even seeing the stuff that people aren't posting, but are still celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, and would have been happy if President Trump had been taken out. We are dealing with some really evil people. And to me, that's what this ultimately boils down to is, and yeah, look, I'm a God-fearing Christian man. I believe that Satan has a great hold on a lot of people in this country and is using it to do evil acts like we saw happen against Charlie Kirk, who openly professed his Christianity and talked about his religious beliefs. And again, no matter what you believe politically or religiously or whatever, nobody deserves to just get gunned down like that for their opinions. That's not who we are in this country. That's what we're becoming because of the media, the propaganda machine, because of the education system, which has been indoctrinating these kids to believe that, everyone on the right is a fascist Nazi and is the next Adolf Hitler waiting to happen. Not realizing the irony of the fact that they are the ones doing all the things they're talking about. It's just 100% pure projection. So I'm still just in shock that we're even having this conversation. I remember I had to take my wife to the hospital to get a procedure done for her heart because they're doing some testing. And we had just found out that he had been shot just, I want to say 30, 40 minutes before we had to leave for the hospital. And at that time, I had only seen the distant video, and I saw him, when he just almost immediately went limp. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm like, that's not good, And so we're packing up and we're literally driving to the hospital, and X's, Twitter is blowing up with videos. And then you see the video that went viral of the close-up of what happened. And I mean, I audibly gasped and just went like this. I was going, oh my gosh. And I said, honey, this is not good. I said, they're rushing him to the hospital, but as someone who's been in combat, and before combat, they, at least back when we were preparing in 2004, they made you go through a medical training. Okay. So that everybody had some sort of, you're not a medic, but they're making you go through these classes to understand trauma and bleeding and how to stop it and all this kind of stuff for gunshot wounds or shrapnel wounds from VBIDs, vehicle-borne IEDs. And you're going through this training and you kind of get an idea for how critical it is for you to be able to stop this bleeding and all this kind of stuff. And so I see the close-up of that, and I just turned to my wife. I said, there's no way. There's no way he makes it. Just the amount of blood that he lost from his neck in that short amount of time. I said, even if this happened in the parking lot of the hospital, I don't think that they could help him, because he lost so much blood. And on top of stopping the bleeding, you also have to somehow go in and repair the arteries and stuff that were damaged by the bullet. And I just don't think it's possible. So, and then, hours later, they announced that he had died, which just, again, wasn't super surprising to me, just given the little bit of training that I had in the medical, trauma stuff from when we went to Iraq. So, again, I'm still just having a hard time, even with words, trying to, I'm still fighting this anger. I'm so frustrated and disgusted with what is happening in this country. It's not what I fought for. I fought for the right for everyone to express their opinions as they see fit. I don't care how awful and vile it is. You have a right to speak your opinion, and no matter how much I disagree with it, that's what our country was founded on. But yeah, again, I'm having a hard time because you want to go back to a time where we just left each other alone, or you could have a debate and discussion. You didn't have to worry about this kind of stuff. I run the Idaho Second Alliance and I run Idaho Dispatch, and told my wife, I'm like, we got to make some changes, because again, not that I'm Charlie Kirk, but I certainly write stories for the Idaho Dispatch that make a lot of people very angry. I run a gun rights group, and we haven't had a death threat for quite a while, but just given what happened, I thought, I should probably do some additional changes in my own life to protect myself, my family. You try to, in these moments, you want to use your anger for something good, to keep, fuel a fight, fuel the fight to keep bear arms and make sure that we're not given an inch, no compromise, that we're still fighting back. You want to be able to protect free speech and expand it and restore it to what it used to be. You want to use your anger to do something good, not to lash out, not to be violent, because that is what they want. Well, Greg, the time for talking is over. We just need to get this thing kicked off. I'm going, no, that's not the answer. And I'm not saying that won't be the end, I would say, result, but in the end, that might be where we're headed. Okay. Probably is. But my belief is that God expects us to be, to delay that and to be as peaceful as possible until we can no longer do it. I do believe that we obviously have a right to self-defense, but there are some on the right who are calling for just straight up authoritarianism, and they want to round people up and do all this stuff. And I'm just going, no, like we can't lose our principles. We can't lose our values because we're angry. We have to protect. And this is the time, by the way, where government will come after the Second Amendment and the First Amendment and everything else. They'll do what they can to use your anger to go, okay, yep, liberals can't own guns, or liberals can't have free speech, or whatever. You just have to remember, whatever you give the government, they're not giving that back, okay? And it will only expand from there. It's only going to get worse. And so when the left and the Democrats are in power, guess what? We'll probably have a lot of platforms that no longer allow us to do what we do. We'll probably have more efforts to take your right to keep and bear arms. So at the end of the day, the government is not the answer, solution, or anything in between. It is the problem 99.9% of the time. And so you can't use your anger and allow the government and use government as justification for trying to be the solution to this problem. The problem is deep. It's very, very deep. It's a godless society we have right now. We've kicked God out of everything, although watching the response from so many people who are going back to a church for the first time in their lives or decades or whatever is kind of miraculous to see. I think God uses these evil situations for his benefit, and that certainly seems to be the case now. But my son, Camden, he's one of our kids with autism. We have two with autism, and I remember what happened. Like he started watching YouTube videos, and a year and a half ago, he just became hyper focused on Jesus, and which is fantastic because most kids that's not their thing. And the year before that, he was super hyper focused on the news and Donald Trump and what was happening with all that stuff. And I teach my kids correct principles, but they've by and large kind of just, this kid in particular does his own thing. And so he's got this YouTube channel called Camden the Preacher, and he'll get on and he'll just figure out some Bible thing he wants to talk about, or whatever, and some story about Jesus. And anyway, he does these short little sermons, and they're pretty they're pretty awesome. And he's a young kid with, I think, a bright future, and so yeah, we don't force him to do that, but he did this video right after Charlie died, and it's on his YouTube channel. I put his YouTube channel down on that scrolling ticker there. But it's called Camden the Preacher, and he did this video, and he's so funny because the only thing I watch his videos to make sure there's nothing, he doesn't say something totally off the wall crazy. But by and large, he just does his own stuff, and I just post it. And he talked about the Charlie Kirk thing and how there's probably a desire for violence, and I think the quote from his video was like, "Don't lash out, don't crash out." And if you don't know what crash out means, it's basically another way to say you're losing it. So anyway, so he says that on this video and just talks about different ways to, ignore people who are trying to bait you into violence or bait you into just getting angry. And so the kid is just amazing, and I hope and pray that my 5 kids all turn out to be Charlie Kirk type individuals, where they just are dedicated to what they believe in and not afraid to ultimately give their lives for what they believe in. He actually spoke we went to that Idaho Falls Charlie Kirk vigil. There's vigils all across the state, all very peaceful. I think there was one fight at the one in Boise, or one of the ones in Boise, but that ended fairly quick. It was a former BLM activist that was, went to the Capitol and was like, F Charlie Kirk, and somebody decided to, attack the guy and start fighting him, and the cops eventually broke it up and I think arrested the guy who was, instigating or whatever. But yeah, it's been hard. My wife wept, and again, she didn't know Charlie personally at all. It's just something felt different about this situation than any other situation. Maybe since 9/11, I've never really felt, and I think, so like the Minnesota speaker that got assassinated earlier this year, I that wasn't okay. Again, it's not okay to just go and murder someone because of their beliefs or their vote or whatever. But this definitely felt different than anything I've ever felt, and I still feel it today because I'm still trying to just go, man, this is crazy. Like, we don't shoot each other because we have a difference of opinion. Like, that's totally insane. Because if that's the case, then none of us are safe. And I think that's maybe what is a little bit more scary right now, is we feel dangerously close to a civil war, more than I've ever seen in the last 13 years I've been doing this for the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. I don't know there's been a time where I felt like, holy crap, like this may be the tipping point, and it could go in either direction, right? Either we finally wake up and we eradicate these insane ideologies that glorify violence and want to destroy liberty and freedom. Either that side wins, or the side of like, hey, we're going to go back to how we used to be. And hopefully it's that one, and not the one that wants violence and everything else, because it doesn't end well. You have lots of death and destruction and everything else if that's the route we end up going down. So anyway, but yeah, Camden gave a speech at the Charlie Kirk event. It was an open mic thing for anybody in the crowd that wanted to, and he went up and for about a minute just spoke his mind. He had told me ahead of time what he wanted to say. I was like, sure, that's fine. And as he found out, if it's just some speech you're winging off the top of your head, you often don't end up saying the things that you planned on saying. So it was kind of cool for him. He was about 800 people, and he went up there and didn't seem very nervous at all. Just spoke his mind and what he wanted to say, and that was it. So I was really, really proud of him. But you can watch that on there. You can watch his original Charlie Kirk video on his YouTube channel. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments about this whole situation. I'm just it's sad. It's super sad what happened, and hopefully we can use this opportunity to get our country back on track, and that a lot of people who used to follow this insane ideology from the left will wake up and go, okay, this is crazy. Like, we can't live like this. And if that's the result, then I think Charlie would be happy. So anyway, that's it, guys. That's all I got for today. Take care and God bless.